Hollywood Times viewers, Judy Shields here. Today, we're happy to welcome award-winning director, producer, writer, cameraman, and director of photography, Richard Bakewell. Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is. I do it all, but I do it all well. So
All right, that's a confident man for you. We're here today to talk to you about your latest movie, Roswell Delirium. Boy, I watched that movie and I'm telling you, oh, how many thumbs can I give you? It was awesome.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad I got to see it too.
Yeah, it was really, really good. The movie was somewhat scary to watch since the story could happen in our lifetime. When did this story make its way into your thoughts?
I think it was at the end of 2018. I kind of started thinking about it, and then I did this documentary in 2015 about kids with cancer doing their bucket list, and one kid didn't make it. He had cancer 9 times, and that was finally it. And I remember his mom said, "If you want to go, you can go." And I just like it still breaks my heart when I think about that moment, just like saying, "Hey, I'm going to be brave for you. I
Mhm.
want you just to be happy and go, and I'm going to be miserable, but I'm not going to tell you that." And so it kind of like that moment is basically that came up with the whole concept for the film. Where it's like, well, what if a mother had a dying child? What would they do to save their child? What lengths of the earth would they go to save their child? And that's really where the film started to take shape. Was that one thought? And then I'm like, well, what if aliens could save the child? And then it kind of grew from there.
Yeah, well, how long did it take from the script of you writing to make the movie?
Well, I was going to shoot in 2020 in March, and I had just like found a Riverside hospital to shoot at for a short film that was going to be it. It was going to be 8 pages at first, so it was only 8 pages as of March 2022 or 2020, and then we couldn't film. Obviously, everything just happened, so it took 2 years of writing the script to fully flush it out. I did like 17 drafts, and then got it to a point where I was happy with it. And I think choosing the cast. Pretty close to shooting helped really polish up the final details and give it more of a voice than I had originally intended. So like knowing that I had, Kylee and Ari and Ashton in the driver's seat as the three main leads, I could look at their face and I know how they could act, and it just helped me really even write better scenes for them.
I know it's the movie's like always about the cast. I've got this whole little long list here to talk about the cast. Like, first of all, like where did Kylie come from?
Well, we did a short together called The Rabbit Hole in 2018.
Wow.
And, she was like 8 years old. And I just was really impressed with her work ethic and her just bubbliness. And then, it's like during the audition, she like stopped because she messed up for a second and asked to start over. And then when she did, she took this like big breath and goes, and then just like focused and gave this great, audition. And I'm like, I don't know many adults who would have the courage to stop and start over and then just bring it in. And we worked together so well on the short. I asked a lot of her. The film was like a psychological PTSD film, and she just, she got it. I didn't have to explain much to her. She'd be very funny and bubbly, and then when it came time to shoot, she just was like in serious mode. And I was just very impressed with how she worked, and I was like, I got to put her in something else.
Well, you picked a great one because I'm watching her going, how many takes there's I can't give too much away, but there's like a scene where she just and I'm like, how did she have a prompter? How did she know these words? No, I couldn't even pronounce it. How did she do that?
No, I mean she had like, I tell you, like her and the rest of the child actors have like a photographic memory. They retain everything. They know their lines. And then, like she knew her lines, and sometimes I could see her mouthing the words as other actors. I'm like, stop mouthing the words. We're getting the reaction shots of you. But she's so intelligent, and she just like she gets it, and she knows her lines. And then I always say once an actor knows their lines, they can then deliver. They can just really deliver the performance. Once they know, they can play with it, because if you don't know the lines, you can't play. So
Oh, you're gonna have to tell her she's another Dolly Parton because I heard Dolly Parton when she did 9 to 5, she went in and memorized the whole script, and they're telling her you're only supposed to know your lines. She knew the whole thing, and it's like, who does that, right?
oh yeah, and she knew everyone's lines. I mean, she had
See?
them down. Reggie's, you name it, Lisa, everybody's lines.
Yeah, like the two girls, it's like uh, their terminology. Were you around, like, was the 80s big for you because all the props you used, the cast that you used? You know, you had like Sam Jones and you had Reginald VelJohnson, you had Lisa Whelchel, I mean, and you had Dee Wallace. These are all from the 80 movies. Was that all
Yeah.
coincidence?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like it didn't start off as an 80s movie. It really was intended to be like this a film about like post-apocalyptic. And then, when I was writing it on draft 13, I was like, what if it became a, 80s movie? Because like, I've always wanted to do an 80s film. It's, and like I chose this film to be a love letter to the 80s. It starts off, it feels like nostalgia, and then it kind of turns, and then you start to see the decay of the characters, and then it becomes an emotional roller coaster. And I knew I could not have an 80s movie without 80s, like, very famous actors from that era. It's like I want you to feel like you're watching a film back then, but also to be very serious and not campy. And all those actors, Lisa, Anthony Michael Hall, Reggie, all of them, Sam, they got it. Dee Wallace especially. They were all on board and knew, like, from the table read, that I was not gonna put them in a campy movie. That was a serious 80s film with light humor. And I just, luckily I had the right people to help bring the acting vision to life, because everyone really helped elevate each other so much.
Yeah, they're all their roles, just it was like you wrote for them. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like you said, and I'm seeing some of the stuff in your background because you had all these props. Like, where did all those
Yep.
props come from in the movie?
Well, I had this amazing art director named Molly Thomas, and gave her the task of finding all this stuff from the 80s. Like my friend's house was actually used as the 80s house of the Malones in the movie. And she came in there and they wallpapered the house, that brown wood texture, got this big tube TV. We built a ham radio garage, and it's like she had the very daunting task of recreating the 80s. And I always tell people, the 80s that you think now is different than how it was back then. Like you watch a show now and it's very like pink and blue, and everything is like very popping colors. But like back then, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like you saw that stuff here and there, but like the homes were not that way. And Molly really helped gain my trust from like day one when we did the classroom, because that was a set. It wasn't a real class. There was a lot of school shootings happening, and it was really difficult to get into a school at that point. So we rented a set, and then she brought it to life with her team, and I'm like, wow. Like, if you watch it, you have no idea that that's not even a real classroom.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like I look like I'm watching a movie from the 80s.
Yeah.
You did an amazing job, and all the 80s were great. And I also wondered, were you into ham radios growing up too? Because it was,
No, I really wasn't. Like when I was growing up, I cared about, watching all the great movies, Back to the Future, and RoboCop, Die Hard, all that kind of stuff as a kid. That's all I cared about, and going to Children's Palace to get the latest toy. That was always,
Yeah.
the hunt. Every weekend they'd have back then they had shelves and walls of Star Wars figures. Now it's like not that way anymore.
Right.
So that was like my goal, and I never even knew about ham radios until probably about 6 years ago. And then I just thought, how would you like reach people in space if you can't make contact? Like you need some high powered devices. But then when I started doing research, I found that there is actually a way to talk to people in space if you moon bounce a signal, which is not an easy thing to do, but it can be done. And there was actually a girl who talked to somebody on NASA a couple years ago. So I was like, that's a pretty incredible thing to happen. So I'm like, that's when I really started to just dive into the ham radio world. And then you've realized like there's a world of ham radio people, and they are so serious about it. I had one guy break down the trailer, and he's like, I didn't know that aliens could be on this bandwidth. And I'm like, it's a movie. It's not even, it's like, it's just, these are the numbers that would work on our radios. We couldn't get all the numbers to work, so.
Yeah, very interesting. I just thought that maybe you were into it because it was such a part of it, from her grandpa to all that. And I'm like, that is so cool. Because I actually had one when I was younger too. And I would talk to the truck drivers just like she was doing. So it was memories for me watching her. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Well, and it's in the film too, she's very lonely, and I'm like, what would how would a kid communicate back then? Like, what? Okay, there was a phone, there were phones back then, but
Yeah.
there wasn't the internet, there was nothing. So how would she, still make contact with people? And I was like, well, like the ham radio prop really just kind of like gave me an idea, to, like almost like we're like these people that she's talking to are almost like her friends, where she's just like talking to people every day, and like her mom says, giving people love advice like Dr. Ruth, so it's like, it just really, one ham radio and story that I read really kind of grew into something bigger, which it's great to have that, because sometimes, you have blanks as a writer, you can't fill every blank, and that just really helped really position me to like tell their points of the story later in the film. So.
Yeah. How do you go about getting like footage from past events like the Challenger space shuttle disaster? Does that take a lot to get that?
That took 6 months.
Oh,
Um, I spent 6 months talking to a gentleman there named Bert from NASA to get approval to use their footage, because there is a long process. There is hardly ever any green light to get the approval to use footage. And after like months of like he would like I'd send him stuff and he would disappear. And then finally he would respond again, and I'm like, "Did you read the script yet?" And he hadn't had a chance because they were doing other projects. But I got him to accept the script and to approve it. And he goes, "Look, you can use any footage we have, but you have to change the logo. It can't be that wormy, that loophole logo that we have. It's got to be your own logo you can make." And it's like I spent 6 months, beating him down to let us use it, and he finally agreed to it. And then after that, I was like, okay, we have to have it in there, because that was a very crucial point in my childhood, watching that explode in the classroom, because the teacher was crying and we didn't know that they were all dead. We didn't know what happened, in real life.
yeah.
We just thought, oh, that's part of it. The rockets were taking off. We didn't know it was a full-on explosion until like later, after like it all sank in, and they turned the TV off and explained it. But we had no idea at first. But it was like such a huge moment in history.
Yeah, I appreciated that, and I thought, oh, how did you get that? Because the way the whole scene went, it was like you said, like you were watching something in real time, and showing pictures of President Reagan and all different things, from the 80s. I watched it a few times because I wanted to catch stuff that I didn't miss, and I like that about movies, so that you could go back and tell folks, hey, watch it a couple of times because you're going to miss things.
Oh, you will. There's things that you'll miss. I mean, there's Easter eggs in there. There's also
Yeah.
story plot points that you have to really pay attention to that makes sense later at the end. And it's funny because when we were editing the movie, and I was like, well, I really want to like show like video of the Challenger outside the classroom. But then I was like, once I did that, I felt like it takes you out of that experience. I feel like watching the TV as a student, as a viewer, makes you feel like you're watching it again. And the minute you see it out of the TV, then you're not watching the Challenger take off again. So I had to really keep the point of view of like the TV is the way we're going to watch this moment happening.
Yeah, and you did that beautifully. I was
Thank
wondering,
you.
did you film the part where they're next to the beach? Was that Salton Sea?
That was the Salton Sea. Yeah. I went there in 2020, because I've always read about it. There was a movie with
Yeah.
Val Kilmer about, Salton Sea years ago. And I was like, I want to go check it out because I'm bored. It was like
Yes.
July 2020. You couldn't do anything really still, like, and I took a drive down there. It was 113 degrees, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. I went to take photos, and then they have like, there's an area where they have these special mud pots where you can
Yes.
see like sulfur bubbling, but it's like you have to really know where to find it. It's like it's on the map, but they don't tell you the actual address. And I went to the Salton Sea, and I was like, I really want to incorporate this. I feel like it's a magical place, even though it's kind of gone bad and it's kind of decayed.
Yeah.
And the smell, is pretty rough. But once you get used to it, it kind of goes away. And I just loved how it felt very heavenly. It felt like this could be a place where Kylee and Ashton go there to relive parts of their childhood and dreams or whatever sequences, and swing in the water. And when I went there in 2020, the swing was actually, it went up to your waist. The water went that high, And then when we went there, it was I think it was like probably to the ankles, so it just really had dried up. And I love that place. It's very magical. It's very unique with the people who live around there, but it is a beautiful place when you look at all the pieces and the art. It's so amazing.
The art is something, isn't it? It is a
Oh
place
yeah.
great to go to see. It's it's, and then that one guy that did that mountain. Did you go to that
Oh
one?
yeah, that's in Shiprock, New
Yeah.
Mexico. You know, people think that that's all CGI, and I'm like, nope, that's all real. And
Right?
I sent two people out there to get shots of Shiprock, and they got some pretty incredible stuff. Like because I
Mhm.
have another drone operator who was like, he watched the movie last weekend. He goes, I didn't think you could fly over the volcano. I said, well, you can. I said, it's just up to you if you feel like you want to take that risk, because if you hit anything on that mountain, your drone's gone forever. So, but that guy was very confident in what he could do. And then he just like soars over the edge of it. And I was like, wow, I never expected those kind of shots. I gave him a list, but he just did better than I expected.
Yeah, it's an amazing part of the movie too. I mean, like I said, I rewound that a couple of times. Just really, let's see this. It's got to be a drone. Amazing job. Amazing job. What would you like the audience to take away from this film?
Well, I really, I've seen it like for the first time finally as a whole last weekend, and I got to really enjoy it with everybody because the first time we were sold out and I gave up my seat. The second time I had to like deal with other things. Sam Jones was flying in and stuff at the theater, and so I got to finally enjoy it as the audience did for the first time last weekend. And for me, I want the audience to kind of like go in there to like really just dive into their childhood nostalgia and just like come in to relive that feeling, that apple pie feeling of the 80s, and to walk away later at the end of it talking about the film, because really, as I've told several people, it's like, sure, there's humor, there's Easter eggs, nostalgia, but it's really the film as a metaphor about mental illness
Mhm.
and the decay that happens, when someone starts to, lose part of their mind, and it just kind of worsens, and it gets, down the road. And I think something that we don't do in this country enough is talk about mental illness and health. And I live in LA. You see homeless people all the time on the sidewalk, and people just don't always approach them the best way and respect. And I think like, there are so many people struggling in this world who are not doing mentally okay. Even like my friends, and I've had friends who have, killed themselves. And then it's like, I just thought they just didn't want to hang out anymore. I didn't know they were going through something traumatic. So I think really I just want mental illness to be kind of like the core of the conversation after the film.
Yeah, because I did take that away. That's why I wanted to ask you to have you talk about it, because it's such a heartening thing, being like downtown LA, like you said, the
Yep.
homeless, and you don't know what to do. You're either afraid of them or you reach out, and it's like nobody knows what to do, and it is a sad thing,
No.
and we don't know who's dealing with what, behind closed doors.
Yeah, even the people closest to us,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know what they're going through. And it's like, I had a friend once who was struggling, and then, found out later he had died of carbon dioxide poison in the garage. He just wanted to kill himself. And I just thought he was being distant and just being a jerk. And then that's what was happening. So it's always better in life to reach out and keep reaching out and pushing until, people come around. Everybody needs help. So.
Yeah, this will be a great message to put out there as well, to go along with the movie.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm reading here in 2004, you founded Light Force Pictures, a film and television company. Tell us about your company.
Well, we started off, back then doing very small productions, did like some kind of like straight to, DVD and, hotel, like kind of like like that B movies, back then we did like the B movies, and with like, kind of like Michael Madsen type actors. And we did that kind of stuff back in the day. Tom Sizemore, people who weren't that big, but they're kind of those character actors. So we kind of started doing things like that back in 2004. And then, kind of a lot of reality stuff. And then like live events finally was something we started doing more of. And then I think in the last 8 years, the company has kind of grown tremendously, like after doing a lot of projects. And, we've shot a lot of promos for like Amazon, done stuff for like Netflix and YouTube. And like we are, one of our biggest clients is Subaru. and we do stuff
Oh,
for them every couple of months, and we're doing a commercial in Austin next month for them. So it's like we really do a lot of stuff. Like we're not like a dedicated platform for one area, but we kind of like hit multiple areas. Like we're doing docs, we do commercials, we do movies, live events. So it's like, and it's like we have the gear, and we also have like I bring all the people on, I hire everyone that I work with, and so it's kind of like a shorthand of people I've known for years. And really it's just about like uh doing quality work, whether the budget's small or big. That's really what we kind of strive to do.
so as a young boy, when did you like pick up your first camera? I mean, what got you into being, a cameraman first?
Well, it's weird because I kind of like when I was like 14, I worked as a dishwasher, and I bought like this dual deck VHS player, and it was like, I think it was like $600, and it was a lot back then. That's like 2,500 right, probably these days. It was a pretty high end, but I really wanted it to like edit, some clips together and stuff, and so I did that. And then I think my friend bought like this crazy like black and white video camera called the PXL 2020. I think he's like 16 when he got it, and we would just shoot everything. And he shot on like almost like a cassette tape, and we would just film things and little movies and stuff. And it just really started like thriving my passion that I've always had as a child. But like doing it and just seeing like people's reaction to like real moments is like, wow. And it was like this, you can really make someone laugh or cry with this to what the camera is doing. It's just a magical thing. It's just like you're putting this little box out into the world, and everyone can just, it makes you feel a certain way. It's like it's so magical. People just don't even realize that sometimes everything that you're seeing is all put together for a reason. They want to make you feel sad, scared, angry. It's like it's just a beautiful thing. And I've always been into the camera side of it, which helps me as a director really communicate to the DP what I want for every shot, every movement. Really just helps go hand in hand.
So I'm going to ask you, like being the cameraman, you got this big old thing, and then you're kind of seeing a director, a producer, a writer. So what is it like being a director? Do you always feel like you want to take the camera from the guy? I mean, how is that?
Well, for me, like on Roswell, I had a great DP named Carter Ross, and him and I just clicked right away. I told him to kind of look. I said I wanted to feel like an '80s movie. I wanted to have these orange colors to kind of feel warm, like E.T. That movie. There's a lot of warmness to it, a lot of orange to it, and then have a decay at the end where it turns kind of bluish.
Yeah.
And like he just got everything. We had a immediate shorthand. He got everything. I would give him shot lists, and I'd tell him I wanted the camera to move, and he would make it happen. And I never had to worry about that side of it. Never had to feel like I need to take the camera off his shoulder, because doing this for 20 years, I have had to do that before with people that I've worked with who were so bad. I had to like one guy, I did this like Spanish housewife show years ago. I had to take the camera literally off his shoulder and start shooting because he just didn't know what he's doing. And I didn't have anything like that at all. Carter, like I would look at the monitor, looks great shot, and then I would sit on my knees and I would just watch the actors perform, and I wouldn't even look at the monitor again because I trusted him that much. So I just let him do his thing, and I just focused on the actors. And then sometimes I would sit there with my eyes closed and just try to hear the performance, and I'm like, well, it's just working, and what's not working, and then just find a way to quickly fix it. It's all because the whole in any movie or show, it's about having the right tone, and that was something I really strive to have throughout the whole film, is the right tone throughout.
So with all the things you've been have your hands on, are you going to continue to like be a director, be a writer, a cameraman? You want to do all that the rest of your life?
Well, I feel like I think directing is kind of like the path to kind of phase your way out of, like being a cameraman, DP. That's kind of like the way to phase yourself out and kind of elevate and level up. So the goal is to start directing more, and I think once this film's finally out, it'll kind of be a calling card to get more work, and to get other projects that are not written by me, but to also I do enjoy writing, but it does take a lot of time and focus. And like I've been doing a lot of interviews for this movie and trying to work too, and I'm traveling a lot. So I haven't had a moment to really sit down and just focus again on a script, but I have ideas I've been kind of jotting down. But obviously the goal is just direct and then hire all the best people, and all the best actors and crew that I can, find myself available to work with. So
that's why it's great to have your own company, right? So you can do all that.
yes.
So what are you like currently, besides promoting this? Is there anything else you're currently working on?
Well, I have a film that's coming out. I was the DP of called Linda Perry Let It Die Here. It's a documentary about Linda Perry, who was the lead singer of Four Non Blondes. And she spent most of her career writing songs for people like Christina Aguilera, like Beautiful. I think everybody knows that song, You Are Beautiful no matter what, and Pink and Dolly Parton. So that's going to premiere in Tribeca in June.
Oh,
And I just had another documentary I did called Serving in Secret about gays in the military. That was on MSNBC. I think that premiered 2 months ago. And
okay.
I have a lot of things I'm doing here and there, but like it's like always another project. I'm doing a true crime show right now about a lady who like conned people out of given her over $100,000 that she lied about having cancer, and that they found out, and she served 5 years in prison and is still serving. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Watch out for
Yep.
that.
Oh
So
yeah, coming soon to Hulu. Yep.
yeah, that's something. So what's your social media so we can find you?
You can look me up and find me under like Instagram or Facebook at Rick Bakewell, or you can look up Roswell Delirium, Instagram or Facebook, and follow that as well.
Okay, well, we appreciate you spending the time to talk to us here at the Hollywood Times. We will be putting this up on our YouTube channel, Hollywood Times Official. So once again, thank you so much, and let us know when you're going to have other projects, so you can we can talk to you about what's coming up.
Absolutely, I look forward to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being with us today.
All right, thank you, Judy. Appreciate it so much.